You know him as a man who wears many hats: politician, bureaucrat, economist and outspoken voice. But NK Singh of the BJP also wears another hat, which is long-time Davos veteran, 17 years, Mr. Singh. What is the mood now since you've been seeing Davos for so many years?
Well, you know, frankly, I have seen the evolution of Davos for a long time. It began as a small ski resort. The number of people who came 17 years ago were rather limited. The interactions were more intimate. But Davos has increasingly become more complex, more diversified in the spectrum of economic, indeed, or human activity in general. So I have seen really evolution of India moods also. And I must confess that this time seems to be a magical moment for India. There is not one dissenting voice which doesn't regard India as perhaps the brightest global spot for investment and for future growth potential.
But Mr. Singh, all that is on camera and on the surface, isn't it? Because everyone's saying I in the BRICS is the only one standing and shining, and relatively we at 7% plus growth are way better than China and the rest of the pack. But corporate India says we are concerned. We are concerned about the climate. We are concerned about the lack of implementation of reforms. We need more.
Yeah, that's true, because it's true that there are some stressed sectors as far as corporates are concerned. Steel is stressed, petroleum and oil prices have come down. There will be consequences for that. There have been cases of stranded assets. Some exposures to national highway program are stressed. But those are precisely the sectors in which the government has tried to defreeze the stranded assets. Look, the significant changes in the highway building program is now very tangible. The significant progress in unlocking the blockages in the power sector. Even a month ago, the new power, great power reforms called the Uday, which frees up the discoms, that is very significant. Steel, of course, we realize it's a global problem which has consequences, but there are also very high growth points. You look at, for instance, the growth of the digital economy in India, and indeed it would be one of government's great achievement to wire India to move to a digital platform which enables improved quality of governance, when people can receive multiple benefits which the government gives on not direct kind of movement, but through a seamless digital platform which empowers them greatly. So I think that when you look at the totality, you look at the number of startups which are coming up, look at India becoming increasingly an innovation hub and a platform, there is no one dissenting voice that India looks to be now the great opportunity.
You know, corporates are asking, Mr. Singh, that the government of India should impose tariffs or import duties on Chinese imports coming in, especially on the steel side. Do you think that's a reasonable suggestion and the government has room to do this?
Well, very frankly, let me say that there is always an opposite side of this view. I mean, first of all, India has fully bound by our commitments to the WTO in terms of the manner and pattern of the imposition of tariffs or anti-dumping duties. There is the other side of it, that while steel companies need to be protected appropriately, there are users of steel. You need to balance the users of steel with the producers of steel, and this is exactly a very sensitive harmonization, and that is why the government was very well advised not to impose in a ham-handed way a very stiff tariff on steel imports, which would have of course raised eyebrows all over, may have helped may have cheered up perhaps a sick part of the domestic industry. But you have to balance out the interests of all stakeholders, and while we will take every appropriate steps, and the government has said that it is taking every appropriate steps to protect the long-term interest of steel producers, it has to also take steps that the users of steel products in multiple ways are also not penalized, because their input costs would go up significantly.
Right, but there's also a belief that 2016 is a year of a golden opportunity for the government, with commodity prices at the prices they are currently, which is a boon for India. Do you think the government can rise up to the occasion and pull the trigger? Because Make in India, Digital India, smart cities are all excellent initiatives, but something has to be done in the near term.
Well, I think that the government is well on the way to pulling the trigger and ensuring that the gains of this historic opportunity which India has, which for instance, if you remember in yesterday's panel discussion, the chairman chairman of Cisco said this was identical of 2008 and you bust it at that time, and that this is a second opportunity for India, and there is therefore government is fully aware of the need to push ahead. This is the sweet spot for India and we cannot lose momentum.
So this government is not going to pass the opportunity?
This government will fully grasp the opportunity and realize the multiplier gains that this opportunity has given.
Okay, back to a key issue which came up in the panel discussion as well yesterday, and has been a talking point, GST. The delay in implementing it because of the Congress opposition. Now, NDTV has learned, Mr. Singh, that the Congress is amenable to a compromise. Now, when this will be, it could be in the next couple of weeks, it could be just before the new session. But if it does compromise, the Congress seems to suggest that the BJP is not willing to implement the GST for its own reasons. What do you have to say to that?
Well, very frankly, I think that both the Prime Minister and more particularly the Finance Minister has said it repeatedly. They are open for discussion, they are open for dialogue, and they are open for arrangements which would be to the overall benefit of the economy. And to suggest that the BJP would want to delay this would, in my view, really be somewhat preposterous, because this is a reform program to which this government, in its fullest way, is deeply committed. It's a symbol of a very big change of India becoming a competitive investment destination.
So you think if the Congress gives that compromise, we will see an immediate announcement of the GST coming through?
Depends on what compromises we are talking about, because very frankly speaking, this bill, which has gone through all the stages which are currently under consideration, has been largely crafted by successive finance ministers of the Congress government. So what is the nature of the compromise they are talking about? We are largely carrying out what legacy has really left behind for this government, improving on it in multiple ways, but certainly this is a kind of a reform to which we stand deeply committed.
Okay, I'm going to go back to your 17-year experience in Davos, and I know you told us about how things have changed, but tell me what to your mind is the most pressing issue which has come out of Davos in 2016. That one thing that everyone's talking about and India must take as an example.
There are two messages which I'd like to carry. That the doom and gloom currently being experienced in Davos of a meltdown in China, perhaps of the European recovery being more tentative, problems of evolving geopolitics, problems of collapsing stock market and oil prices, the problems which this creates for many segments, whether this is all pervasive and what action can be taken to make it more transient and far less pervasive. So this is one message which I take. Second message which I take is that the world recognizes that this is a great opportunity for India, and that India must take all the steps back home, all the steps which are necessary in terms of it continuing its macroeconomic stabilization program, its deep structural reform programs, to grasp this opportunity so that we truly become the world's most liked, the most sought after investment destination, and we become drivers of change, good for India, good for the world.
So should we be expecting a big bang budget from India this year?
Well, I think we should certainly, I think one should not speculate on the entire enigma and the mystique of the budget, is because Mr. Jaitley's smiles must not be misread, whether in Davos or in New Delhi. But certainly the Prime Minister has said repeatedly that this budget would see a deep continuation of the reform initiatives which have already commenced.
Do you feel it will be more infrastructure related? You want to share some pointers about what you're sensing on the ground?
I think the Finance Minister in his long interview yesterday has given more than adequate hints or some of the preferred areas of expenditure in terms of strengthening the digital platform, strengthening the infrastructure, strengthening the social sector, making really the growth process being far more inclusive, looking to agriculture and empowering rural India, so the purchasing power of rural India really becomes an important multiplier in the growth process.
Well, we certainly hope so, and thank you for sharing your perspective and your incredible experience right here in Davos. Mr. Singh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.